This is Michelle, and you're listening to Words with Michelle, the podcast, a show where I sit down and have conversations with influencers on a range of topics, anything from natural hair, employment, discrimination, food, relationships, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at michelle@wordsmichelle.com. Welcome to episode 25 of Words with Michelle, the podcast. Today's show spotlights a conversation I had with Cityline host Tracy Moore 2 years ago. I interviewed her for my blog. Sidebar, I emailed her for 5 straight years to do an interview, and it finally paid off. Never give up on your dreams, y'all. You can read that interview on my blog at wordsmichelle.com. Okay, now back to the episode. Although we spoke about several things during the interview, like how she got into media, landing the coveted role of Cityline host, her family, it was Tracy's response to being body shamed online that affected me. I wanted to revisit that, as body shaming is rampant online. People are attacked for their size, color, race, you name it. And as you can tell, no one is immune from it. I wanted to share Tracy's experience and how she responded. Before I start the show, I do want to thank Tracy for being such a lovely, gracious person and for taking the time out to speak with me and for sharing her experience with us. I started off the show telling Tracy that I read what the body shamer wrote and asked why she decided to address the nasty comments. This is what she had to say. I read what they said, and I saw your response. What gave you the strength to do that, to actually call attention to it? Because sometimes people say things, you kind of let it go.
I just think that I feel like they caught me on the wrong day, because there are a lot of comments I get, and for the most part, I'm actually really happy that I have a very positive platform. I don't get a lot of hate, which is great.
Yeah.
But I read it and it gave me pause. Like I sort of thought, I'm like, okay, well, this white man feels entitled enough to come on my page and tell me about my body and tell me about this pseudo-racist science. And he's doing that on my page to, I don't know, inform people about me or make a point about me and black women. And I just felt like, who gave you the right to do that? And also, I want to put this out there, not even necessarily to embarrass him, because I don't really care that much about him. And it was a man, and a lot of people thought it was a woman.
I thought it was a woman, too, actually. That's funny.
Yeah, everybody thought that, which is actually very telling in itself, that people would assume that a woman would be tearing me down versus a man. But I felt that I wanted Canada to see how backwards we still are. And I wanted to remind people not to be that guy. And so I sat on that post for a little while. I wrote it, and then I rewrote it, and then I covered his name.
Yeah.
And I showed my husband, and he was like, maybe change this word, maybe change that. He goes, you're prepared to have people, like, fight you on this, because white people do not like to hear about racism. They really don't like to hear about racism. And I said, yeah, I know, and I feel like I'm sort of in this position so that I can talk about stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, so go for it. And I sent it out, and I was not expecting that response. I knew people would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe people are still saying that, and I thought there'd be some shock. I did not expect that level of shock. And then that made me upset again, because that means people are completely oblivious of the world we are living in as people of color in this country.
Yeah.
And how privileged are you that you can actually float through life and think that people aren't being targeted this way and aren't being spoken about this way? And you know, that the list of assumptions that I get when I walk in a room are very different than the list of assumptions they make when they see a white person. And so it was a good opportunity to start a conversation that basically has been going on forever and will be going on forever, because we have so much freaking work to do.
I like that you called it out, you put it in everyone's
Yeah.
face. Because I even saw when you were on, I think you were on breakfast television as well with Jill Andrew.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and like you
Yes.
said, yeah, that was awesome. That was perfect. Even myself, I mean, I'm an employment counselor. That's what I do.
Okay.
But you feel it in any facet of your life, though. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah,
So,
you do, and people necessarily understand that we're walking a different path and
yeah,
we're walking a different journey,
exactly.
and people still didn't understand when I said, there's a duplicity. We are duplicitous in the sense that we have to go to work and code switch.
I wanted to give a brief description of what code switching is. Code switching is describing the many ways we adapt. And when I say we, it could be people of color, it could be people who speak a different language, but is the many ways we adapt to our language, behavior, and actions to the dominant culture. So it's a way of modifying behavior.
Go to work and we
Yes.
have to sort of be this very non-assertive, non-aggressive,
Yeah.
non-offensive, because they are going to take everything that we say that can be misconstrued, and they're going to misconstrue it. And some people were like, well, why wouldn't you show your real self? It's like, you don't understand that I have to play a very different game than my white colleagues have to play.
Yes.
I just do.
Yeah.
When I'm operating at this level, I do. But I'm doing it so that I can be in a position where I can actually exact some real change. And I do think it's worthwhile to play with people at a high level, and when you get to that high level, then you are able to do things you would not be able to get to if you didn't make it there. So that's sort of my game plan and my strategy and the way I run my life.
Thanks for listening to the very brief episode. It was a pleasure speaking with Tracy. It's commendable that she uses her platform to start uncomfortable conversations and to make much needed change, not just in media, but everywhere. Thanks for being a role model, Tracy. Thanks for joining me for the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. If you love the podcast, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have feedback on today's episode, email me at michelle@wordswithmichelle.com. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks for listening. Bye.